March 24, 1945. Ramitelli Airfield, southern Italy. The first light of dawn creeps over the Adriatic horizon, painting the olive groves in hues of gold and shadow, while the low rumble of Merlin engines stirs the chill air like distant thunder. Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr. stands at the edge of the dispersal area, his flight jacket zipped against the morning bite, eyes scanning the line of P-51 Mustangs, sleek predators with their tails splashed in vivid crimson, earning them the whisper of red tails among the bomber crews. He adjusts his goggles, the weight of command settling heavier than the leather on his shoulders, knowing this mission to Berlin will test not just their wings, but the invisible chains of doubt back home. You can almost feel the tension in the cockpit as Captain Roscoe C. Brown climbs into his Mustang, Bessie, the aluminum skin still cool from the night, vibrating faintly under his touch as ground crewmen, fellow black airmen, their faces smudged with oil, swarm like bees, final checks on the superchargers and 50 caliber machine guns. Brown's gloved hands grip the control stick, the familiar scent of aviation fuel mixing with the earthy dampness of Italian soil, his mind flashing to Tuskegee where it all began, those grueling hours in the hot Alabama sun, proving skeptics wrong one loop at a time. Clear for takeoff, crackles the radio, and Davis's voice cuts through, steady as steel. Red tails, form up. We've got bombers to shepherd today. The props bite the air, a chorus of roars building to a crescendo, and one by one, the Mustangs lumber down the pitted runway, lifting off in a ballet of dust and determination, climbing into the vast blue where the Luftwaffe waits like wolves in the clouds. High above the Apennines, the formation tightens, 4 squadrons strong, the 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd, all under the 332nd Fighter Group's banner, their red tails a defiant streak against the morning sky. Lieutenant Charles E. McGee, wings steady on his P-51D, glances at his wingman, the altimeter spinning past 20,000 feet, the oxygen mask fogging slightly with each breath as they link up with the B-17 Flying Fortresses of the 15th Air Force, heavy with bombs for the Daimler-Benz factories in the heart of the Reich. The bombers lumber like burdened elephants, their silver fuselages glinting, while the Mustangs weave protective patterns, eyes peeled for the telltale contrails of Messerschmitts or Focke-Wulfs lurking on the edges of the formation. Davis's Mustang leads the high cover, throttle forward, the G-forces pressing him into the seat as they push toward the Alps, the radio alive with terse calls, bandits at 3 o'clock high. No fear in those voices, just the honed edge of men who had shattered barriers before breakfast, segregated training fields, doubting generals, a nation that saw them as experiments rather than eagles. As the Alps give way to the flat expanse of southern Germany, the first hints of flak pepper the sky, black puffs blooming like deadly flowers, shaking the bombers and forcing the escorts to jink and weave. Brown spots them first, a swarm of Me-262 jets, history's first operational fighters, screaming in at over 500 miles per hour, their swept wings and twin engines a nightmare blur against the horizon. The Luftwaffe pilots, elite aces from Jägerschwader units, had ruled these skies for years, their arrogance forged in the fires of Blitzkrieg, dismissing any American escorts as fodder, let alone ones rumored to be flown by those colored boys from some backwater Italian base. But today as the jets close in, Brown's heart pounds not with dread but resolve. He rolls his Mustang into a dive, the airframe groaning under the strain, lining up the lead 262 in his sights. Tracers arc from his guns, stitching the sky, and the German pilot, Oberleutnant Fritz something or other, cocky in his canopy, jinks too late, the Mustang's speed and agility turning the hunter into the hunted. The dogfight erupts in chaos, engines screaming, cannon fire chattering, the cold thin air alive with the acrid tang of cordite even through sealed cockpits. McGee peels off to cover a straggling B-17, his P-51's Merlin roaring as he matches a FW-190's turn, the German's radial engine belching smoke while the red tail stays glued, precise and unyielding. Below, Berlin sprawls under a haze of smoke from prior raids, anti-aircraft batteries thundering defiance, but up here it's personal, a clash of wills where the Tuskegee Airmen prove their mettle, downing jet after jet with marksmanship honed in mock combats over Tuskegee fields. Davis circles above, directing the fray, stay tight red tails, protect the boxes. One by one the Luftwaffe falters, their pilots radioing disbelief. Schwarzflieger? Impossible. As black-winged Mustangs outmaneuver the vaunted Messerschmitts, turning the escort into a rout. Brown claims his jet, watching it spiral earthward in flames, a grin cracking under his mask. This is no fluke, but the culmination of years fighting 2 wars, one overseas, one at home. By the time the formation turns for home, the sky clears of bandits, the bombers intact save for flak scars, and the red tails tally 3 Me-262s for the day, earning a distinguished unit citation that echoes far beyond the airfield. Back at Ramitelli, as wheels touch down and props windmill to a stop, the pilots debrief under the olive trees, sweat-streaked faces lit by the setting sun, sharing laughs and lessons while mechanics swarm to patch bullet holes. Davis claps Brown on the shoulder, You flew like angels today, boys. But in the quiet moments as the stars prick the Italian night, they know the real battle rages on, against prejudice that paints them as lesser, even as their red tails paint the Luftwaffe's defeat across European skies. April 16, 1945. Skies above the Po Valley, northern Italy. The spring sun hangs low, casting long shadows across the patchwork fields below, where partisan fighters and retreating Wehrmacht columns clash in the mud, but up here at 15,000 feet, the air is crisp and unforgiving, the P-51's cockpit a cocoon of humming instruments and the faint whine of superchargers straining against the thinning atmosphere. Captain Robert W. Daniels grips the stick of his red-tailed Mustang, Scream in black, the name scrawled in white paint beneath the canopy, his eyes narrowing behind the tinted glass as he scans for the glint of enemy steel amid the cumulus drifts. This strafing run, part of Operation Chastise's final pushes, feels like payback for every sidelong glance from white squadrons, every experiment label slapped on their backs. Daniels, a former Tuskegee instructor turned combat ace, rolls into a shallow dive, the ground rushing up like a vengeful tide. You sense the raw power as the formation, elements from the 301st and 302nd Squadrons, thunders earthward. 50 caliber guns chattering in staccato bursts that shred a convoy of Opel trucks snaking toward the Austrian border, tires bursting and fuel tanks erupting in orange fireballs that bloom against the green. Lieutenant Richard Thomas, wingman to Daniels, feels the recoil shudder through his frame, the acrid smoke trailing in their wake as they pull up sharply, evading the frantic tracers from German anti-aircraft nests hidden in the farmsteads. Eagle flight, bandits inbound, FW-190s at 2 o'clock low. Warns the radio, Davis's voice from command post Ramitelli barking orders over the static, urging the red tails to reform and climb. The Germans, remnants of JG-300, dive in arrogantly, their radial engines growling, convinced these Schwarz-Teufel are relics of a lost cause. But Thomas anticipates the move, banking hard left in a maneuver drilled into muscle memory from Alabama's dusty runways. The skirmish unfolds in a whirlwind of turns and climbs, the Mustang's liquid-cooled Merlins outpacing the Focke-Wulf's bulk, Daniels lining up Oberfeldwebel Hans Keller's fighter, a scarred veteran of the Eastern Front, in his K-14 gyroscopic sight, squeezing the trigger to send a hail of lead ripping through the canopy. Keller's Me-109. No wait, it's a 190, its yellow nose flashing as it spirals down, pilot bailing out into the bocage below, parachute blooming like a reluctant flower. Thomas claims another, his bursts precise, the enemy pilot's last transmission a garbled curse over intercepted frequencies. Die Amerikaner. Sie sind unschlagbar. The black wings that couldn't be real, now etching another defeat into Luftwaffe logs. Back in the fight, the red tails weave through flak bursts that rattle the airframe like hail on tin, protecting a low-level reconnaissance lightning while racking up ground kills. Rail yards near Verona smoldering, ammunition dumps detonating in chain reactions that light the horizon. As the sun dips toward the Adriatic, the squadron turns south, fuel gauges flickering warnings, the weight of 179 escort missions, flawless in protecting bombers from enemy fighters, pressing on Daniels like an unspoken metal. Over the PA, they spot a destroyer limping in the shallows, its gray hull scarred. In a daring pass, machine guns rake the deck, sinking the vessel in a unique feat no other group could claim, waves churning with debris as the crew abandons ship. Landing at Ramitelli under twilight, tires screeching on the perforated steel planking, the pilots taxi to dispersal, where Italian locals wave from the fences, their cheers a rare balm against the isolation of segregated quarters. In the mess tent, lit by kerosene lamps, Daniels recounts the kill to a circle of faces, McGee nodding, Brown sketching tactics on a napkin, their laughter cutting the night, but eyes shadowed by the 66 brothers lost, names etched in memory like flak scars on a fuselage. May 2, 1945. Ramitelli Airfield. Word crackles over the wires from Allied headquarters. The war in Europe ends, Hitler dead, the Reich in ruins, but for the 332nd, the final patrols linger like ghosts. Lieutenant Colonel Davis gathers the group at dawn, his speech short, voice gravel from too many briefings. We've flown 1,578 missions, down 111 in the air, damaged 148 more. While the rest lost bombers on 46 runs, we lost none to fighters. The men stand tall, red tail insignia gleaming on parked Mustangs, knowing their record, 950 vehicles destroyed, a destroyer sunk, shatters not just Luftwaffe arrogance, but the myth of inferiority peddled in Washington boardrooms. Yet as crates are packed and props stilled, whispers of home filter in, courts martial for demanding equal treatment, base is still Jim Crow, the Double V campaign far from won. In the weeks that follow, the Red Tails ferry dignitaries over the Alps, their Mustangs a symbol of what was possible, while POWs like Lieutenant Alexander Jefferson return from Stalag Luft camps, tales of endurance fueling the fire. Daniels, polishing his wings under a Mediterranean moon, feels the shift, the skies over Berlin once a gauntlet now clear, the Messerschmitts pilots captured and stunned, admitting in interrogations the awe of facing those black aces who flew like demons. But victory tastes bittersweet, the barriers at home unbombed, waiting like unexploded ordnance. As the group prepares to ship out, Davis pins a final citation. For April 26, the last 4 kills in the theater, sealing their legacy in fire and flight. September 1945. Tuskegee Army Airfield, Alabama. The summer heat shimmers off the cracked concrete runways, a far cry from the crisp Italian skies, as Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr. steps down from the troop transport, his uniform crisp but his eyes weary from the Atlantic crossing, the red tail insignia on his duffel bag a fading emblem of battles won. Ground crew, many the same faces from training days, salute stiffly, but the air buzzes with an undercurrent of unease, whispers of separate but equal still echoing in the segregated barracks and officers' clubs, even as victory parades play in distant cities. Davis pauses by a grounded P-40, running a hand over the weathered fuselage, remembering the Berlin runs where his Mustangs dance circles around Me-262s, their pilots' arrogance crumbling like flat clouds. Now home, the real dogfight awaits, against a military that honors them abroad but chains them at home. You can hear the tension in the briefing room as Davis addresses the returning airmen, the wooden walls lined with yellowed flight logs and frame citations, the scent of oiled leather and stale coffee hanging heavy. We flew 200 missions without losing a bomber to fighters, 111 kills in the air, a record that turned Luftwaffe aces pale, he says, voice steady, pointing to a map pinned with red pins marking Ramitelli to the Reich. Captain Roscoe C. Brown, now mustered out but lingering for the ceremony, nods from the back, his distinguished flying cross pinned proudly, the memory of outflying Focke-Wulfs over the Po Valley fueling his resolve. He thinks of the German interrogators' stunned admissions, those black devils in red tails, they fly like the devil himself. But Davis presses on, Truman's order for integration comes soon, our wings cleared the path, but we've got to keep pushing. The room erupts in murmurs, men like Lieutenant Charles E. McGee, ace with 409 combat hours, clenching fists, knowing their post-war paths forked toward civilian skies or continued service in a force still divided. October 1946. Washington, D.C. The marble halls of the Pentagon echo with footsteps as Davis, promoted and transferred to the 477th Composite Group, navigates corridors lined with white officers' portraits, his promotion to full colonel a quiet victory amid the stairs. Outside, autumn leaves swirl like spent tracers, and in a modest office he pores over reports, advocating for the double V, victory over fascism and fascism at home, while fending off courts-martial for protesting base segregations at Freeman Field. Meanwhile, across the country, Brown settles into a classroom at Lincoln University, chalk in hand, teaching history to wide-eyed students, weaving tales of Tuskegee trials and Berlin dogfights to ignite sparks of ambition. We didn't just down Messerschmitts, we downed doubt, he tells them, the blackboard map tracing red-tail routes, inspiring the next wave to dream beyond cotton fields and Jim Crow lines. McGee, opting for the reserves, balances a postal clerk job with family life in Ohio, his pilot's log a talisman, quietly mentoring youth at local airfields, proving the skies belong to all who dare climb. July 26, 1948. The White House. President Harry S. Truman's executive order rings out like a Merlin engine at full throttle, mandating desegregation of the armed forces. The ink still wet as Tuskegee veterans like Davis testify before Congress, their combat records, 0 bombers lost to fighters on 179 escorts. A hammer against segregationist arguments. In the Korean War's shadow, 1950 skies see red tails reborn. Davis commands the 51st Fighter Wing in Japan, F-80 shooting stars under his lead integrating squadrons, while others like Colonel George Roberts helm the 99th in Korea, downing MiGs with the precision honed against Luftwaffe jets. You feel the shift in the cockpit as Lieutenant Robert W. Daniels, recalled to active duty, straps into AF-86 Sabre over the Yalu River, the red tail legacy painted subtly on the tail, outmaneuvering communist fighters much as they did Messerschmitts, arrogant foes underestimating the man behind the stick. Back stateside, the airmen fan out. Doctors like Dr. Roscoe Brown founding clinics, lawyers arguing civil rights cases, engineers at Lockheed pioneering jets, their wartime grit fueling peacetime triumphs. March 29, 2007. The Capitol Rotunda, Washington, D.C. Sunlight streams through the dome onto rows of elderly men in sharp suits, wheelchairs and canes no match for the fire in their eyes, as President George W. Bush drapes the Congressional Gold Medal around Colonel Charles McGee's neck, now 86, still sharp as a P-51's nose. The ceremony hums with applause, a choir singing Lift Every Voice, while Davis, past but present in holograms of history, looks down, their legacy tallied. Over 15,000 sorties, 950 enemy vehicles destroyed, a destroyer sunk and barriers shattered that echo in today's Air Force, where black pilots number in the thousands, diversity a squadron standard. Brown, from his educator's podium, watches on television, tears tracing lines etched by wind and war, knowing the black wings that stunned the Luftwaffe now soar in NASA's shuttles, boardrooms, and beyond. McGee, metal gleaming, whispers to a young cadet beside him, "Fly true, son, the skies are yours now." In the years since, memorials rise. The Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Site in Alabama, scholarships launching dreams, films and books retelling how red tails turned arrogance to awe, proving excellence knows no color. The pilots who outflew Messerschmitts didn't just win the war. They rewrote the piece, their Mustangs roar a perpetual challenge to limits, echoing across generations.